Lana Cruzy, and welcome to We've Got Books. And boy, do we ever! We are three authors, Anne Greene, myself, Lana Newman Cruzy, and James Yarbrough. We are coming to you from the big sky country of Dallas, Texas, where everything is bigger, including gun-toting, football, and even our southern draws.
Hi, I'm Anne Greene.
Hello, I'm James Yarbrough.
We'll be your hosts for We've Got Books, and we are excited to be connecting with you. We authors delight in telling you about our newest books, as well as interviewing other exciting Christian fiction writers about their books. Our goal is to introduce you to some great Christian fiction, and we're going to have fun doing it too. We'll focus on getting to know authors and discover why we write books, because backstories are fascinating. We'll discuss fiction of different genres, such as suspense, romance, historical, mystery, women's fiction, western, fantasy, and humor. Have you ever read a sensational book and wondered about the author? I have. How the storyline was chosen and the characters created? We'll sit around the table chatting to get to know each author and how his or her book was created, from a dream to a reality. So sit back and enjoy this captivating ride into the literary world. Today, Jim Yarbrough is interviewing Anne Greene, an award-winning author of 37 books.
Thank you, Lana. And let's kick this off by, if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Allen, Texas. I was born in Ohio, then moved to San Diego, and then to Chicago. I finally settled here in Texas. I graduated from the University of Texas at Dallas, summa cum laude, with a degree in literary studies, but I worked as a legal assistant for a few years. Because I'm a creative person, I switched from the legal field to photography. Hubbs and I ran our own photography studio before he, a colonel in the Army, was deployed to Iraq. Not wanting to run the studio alone, I closed shop. At that point, I began my dream job, writing Christian fiction.
Well, Anne, as a military wife, do you travel to any foreign countries?
I enjoy a thrilling life as a military wife, traveling with my husband to many overseas countries. I've been blessed to visit 40 different foreign countries, plus every state in our own beautiful United States.
Well, that's an amazing statistic. Did you set any of your books in those countries, or do you set your books in the United States?
Some of my books take place in foreign countries, and some here in the U.S. I found Turkey to be one of the most exotic, and I wrote a suspense novel, Shadow of the Dagger, set in Turkey. I set 2-book historical series in Scotland, titled Masquerade Marriage and Marriage by Arrangement. The series covers some of the most turbulent times Scotland faced.
Well, I enjoy reading about books that take place overseas, but also I like books that are set here at home in the United States. Can you give us a taste of where your books here are set?
I've always been interested in women leaving their comfort zone and entering exciting and even dangerous jobs. So you'll find my World War II books like Angel with Steel Wings and A Code Breaker's Christmas Surprise engrossing. Both are set here in the United States.
Well, and as you know, I've read both those books and I really enjoyed them, so I highly recommend them. What genre of Christian fiction do you write?
Well, I'm a hybrid. Rather than specializing in one genre, I write historical and contemporary romance and suspense. I write series and standalone books. All my books contain some suspense and a bit of humor, as well as placing the reader inside the story with deep detail and sensory touches so they can live the story.
Okay, dare I ask how far your romances progress?
That is a touchy subject, but it's an important question. I love to reveal that Christians can fall madly in love, find Christ, or continue following Christ during their romance, but wait until marriage to unite in physical love. I know this seems archaic to young people today, but this is the way God ordained for men and women. And this is the way romance played out for thousands of years for those who strive to please God first in their life.
Excellent point, Anne. I very much agree. What do you absolutely love about being a fiction writer?
Writing fiction is like watching a movie in my imagination. My head is filled with interesting characters. I give them an overwhelming problem and sit back and watch how they overcome. As my character does something totally unexpected and my plot leaps into a new direction, it's like magic. It's so much fun. So that's the way I write.
Well, you're a very busy lady, yet you've had time to write 37 books. I'd love to hear more about them, and our listeners would too, I'm sure. What book are we discussing today?
Today, we're spotlighting my novel, Trail of Tears, the story of John Ross. If you don't mind, I'll read the back cover copy. Here it is. The year is 1838. Trail of Tears, the story of John Ross. One man fights overwhelming odds to survive and protect. Caught between the love of two beautiful women, which one will he choose? What if you are a 20-year-old about to attend college and your whole world collapses? Your mother and sister are missing, and soldiers murder your father, burn your mansion, and take you prisoner. Trail of Tears relives one of the most heart-rending chapters in American history as the U.S. government transports the self-governing, wealthy Cherokee Nation from their ancestral homeland to relocate in hostile Indian territory. The Georgia militia forced John Ross, with only a trickle of Indian blood flowing in his veins, to walk the 1,000-mile Trail of Tears. After John protects a full-blood Indian girl from the lustful wagon master, the cruel soldiers target John for retribution until John's shoved too far. Bitter animosity explodes from a jealous army captain as John pushes and pulls his Conestoga wagon over mountain roads made muddy by rain and slippery by snow. Yet, the persuasive voices of the preacher and his daughter have an impact.
Well, it's a fabulous story, Anne. Would you mind reading an excerpt?
I'd love to. This excerpt is where John meets the pastor's daughter, Hope Wooster. This is in John's point of view. So, Jim, will you read the male part?
I'll be glad to help out, Anne, sure. The sun moved in the sky before Corporal Dread finally finished. He picked up the oxen reins and slapped them on the backs of the patient beasts. John stepped in front of the animals. "Hold on. Give me our rations." The deep voice from the wagon seat spoke soft, as if to a woman. "Ask me nice." They had to have that food and water. The skimpy 2 meals a day left them all hungry. His stomach never eased from the painful, gnawing ache. He leaped aboard the wagon bed and grabbed 2 burlap bags from the dirty floor. With amazing speed for such a heavy man, Dread shot out his foot. The heavy boot caught John in the chest and knocked him out of the wagon. He landed with a jarring crash flat on his back on the rock-hard clay. He writhed as he struggled to breathe. Dread's harsh laughter boomed in the hot, still air. "Welp, I can break you in half any time I feel like it." but I'd sooner seen you twiddling your thumbs inside this here stockade. He bared stained teeth in a wide grin. But one of these days, I'm going to give you another taste of old Bess here. He flicked the bullwhip, and the oxen jerked nervously. When I do, there won't be enough of your skin left to make a bow on a Christmas package. You got that, boy? Flat on his back, his chest heaving for a breath, John kept a tight grip on the food sacks. He jumped to his feet. Then he smacked his forehead. Wooster's daughter. He glanced at the stockade door. The big wooden gate still stood open. He raced toward the gate. He wasn't in any shape to meet anyone, but he'd given his word. Chest burning, blood pounding in his temples, he broke into a trot and rushed to where the Reverend Wooster and his daughter stood on the far side of a dusty wagon. They turned in his direction. From where they stood, they obviously missed seeing his humiliation with dread. You arrived just in time, John. The worry lines on the pastor's forehead disappeared. The guards will close the gate soon. We've been waiting. What kept you? Had a problem. John snapped his mouth into a thin line. Oh, sorry to hear that. The red eyebrows puckered, then smoothed. He turned to the girl at his side. Hope, this is John Ross. You recall, I told you about him. Dredd turned, locked eyes with John, and smirked. John scowled. His breath came hard and fast. He grunted, hunched his shoulders, and clenched his fists. The dimpled smile faded from Hope Wooster's face. The warm lights in her wide green eyes flickered out, leaving them as cool and distant as a mountain peak buried in snow. John, my daughter Hope. Wooster's jovial voice sang with pride. Then he, too, frowned. John sucked in a deep breath and rubbed a hand across the grit and grime streaking his face. A sinking sensation clenched the pit of his stomach. They must think I'm rude, and I look awful, angry, wearing a dirty shirt, threadbare breeches, moccasins with holes so large my toes protrude. He eased the scowl from his face, pulled at the collar of his shirt, and forced a smile. I'm pleased to meet you, Miss Wooster. His voice came out wooden, without warmth or enthusiasm. He thrust out a filthy hand for her to shake. She was small. Her coal-scuttled bonnet stood even with his shoulder, and she was so clean and well-dressed that she seemed to arrive from a different planet. The lacy mitts protecting her hands from the sun didn't belong in the stockade. Hope Wooster's vibrancy radiated around her like a halo. Her green eyes sparkled with vivacity. He swallowed and dropped the hand she hadn't taken. And I've never been at a greater disadvantage. Shifting from one foot to the other, he tossed his hair back from his eyes with a jerk of his head. For such a tiny person, Hope made him feel really uncomfortable. He should say something, but he stood there trying not to scowl, trying to cool his rage, and drinking in her healthy freshness. How many worlds ago had he been on the outside? At his fixed stare, color painted her cheeks, but he couldn't look away. Determination showed in that strong, round chin and steady gaze that returned his stare so coolly. Passion showed in the curve of her lips. Hope Wooster wasn't the sweet, docile, plain preacher's daughter he'd expected. Your most humble servant, ma'am. He cleared his hoarse throat, then flushed as he realized he'd already acknowledged her. John shuffled his feet. If Wooster hadn't come to his rescue, the missionary's daughter would have let him stand there all day mumbling like a fool. He swallowed the lump clogging the back of his throat. They're closing the gate. I'll see you tomorrow, dear. Pastor Wooster kissed his daughter's cheek.
Hope hugged her father. Please take better care of yourself, Daddy. She turned to John. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Ross. The girl's tone suggested that it definitely had not been a pleasure to meet Mr. Ross.
John jutted his jaw. the girl could go to blazes for all he cared. But immediately he realized he did care. The prick to his pride hurt like an arrow to his chest. He couldn't remember when he'd wanted to make a better impression on a female, or when he'd failed so miserably. She turned and walked toward the gate, her slender back stiff, her head held high, the strings of her bonnet floating behind her. Pastor laid a heavy hand on John's shoulder. "Sorry, my fault. Timing was off. I'm afraid I built you up to a hero status in my daughter's eyes." "No, sir, not your fault. I was rude." John kicked at the ground and gazed at the pastor's worn boots. "What did you tell her about me?" "Oh, not so much. Just that you had been accepted at Princeton and how you saved Rachel from Robert Dredd. Oh, and I told her you were a new convert and skimped on your own food to give more to the children." John swallowed. "You laid on the praise of Big Thick, didn't you?" "All true, son." He winked. "And I told Hope you were very respectful to women, seldom lost your temper, and were never in a bad mood." "You didn't." "Afraid I did. So when I had my mind on plotting revenge, she got the impression I didn't like her." John winced. He was the worst kind of idiot. "Probably do her good. She's accustomed to having young men fall at her feet. You no doubt intrigue her. Aggravate her, more like. Don't let her get the upper hand with you, or she'll lose interest." "That was interest? Wooster must not know his own daughter. She wanted no part of me, and that stung."
Wow, that was great. Lana Cruzy here again. Thank you for reading, Jim, and thank you, Anne. I've read your book, and it is so exciting, packed with information, and has a wonderful spiritual application, too. What would you like readers to take from reading Trail of Tears, the story of John Ross?
I've learned to step out in faith into unknown and very uncomfortable situations. I often use the verse found in Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
I love that verse too, Anne. Thank you, Anne. Please check out Anne's book, Trail of Tears, the story of John Ross. Go to Amazon.com, put Anne Greene in the search bar. The last name is Greene with an E at the end. Actually, Anne also ends with an E, Anne. Check out Trail of Tears, the story of John Ross, and any of her other books that snag your attention. There are many. She writes historical and contemporary romance and suspense. Please tell our listeners, Anne, if you have a website or someplace where they can contact you personally.
I'd love to hear from my readers. My website is annegreenauthor.com. On my website, you'll find some of my art, pictures with my husband's military career, covers of all my books, as well as short descriptions, and more important, ta-da, a place where you can sign up for my free newsletter, which tells you more about my life, my latest books, and usually offers free autographed copies of my books. So please sign up.
Listeners, we're so glad you joined us today, and we'd love to hear from you. You can find all our books we mentioned on Amazon. Look up the author's name and the book they discussed. We loved having you and hope you will meet us next week when we spotlight James Yarborough with his futuristic novel, Liquid Moon. You won't want to miss this exciting podcast.